Okay, Rick here. We're going to be today showing you an install video on putting in a Rekluse Radius X clutch, which is an auto clutch on my 2018 Yamaha Raptor. But I'm going to start off today first, before I get into the actual install and showing you how to basically remove and replace a clutch. I'm going to start off with a little bit of review, a little bit more in depth explaining on what the Rekluse is. So a couple things. A Rekluse clutch isn't anything magic. All it is simply one clutch disc that's centrifugal, that when it's at idle, it's skinny and it takes the pressure off your clutch pack and allows the clutch pack to slip just like you got the clutch in. And then when you give it the gas and the RPMs increase, it expands, puts pressure on your clutch pack just like you're letting out the clutch, and away you go. That's all that thing does. It doesn't convert it to an automatic transmission, doesn't change your bike really in any way. It just expands and contracts there on your RPM. So why would you want one of these things? So I'll explain it in a couple of different scenarios here. So first off is the more novice rider. Maybe you've got multiple people that ride the bike and some of them don't know how to use a clutch, or you're having struggling a little bit on some technical areas. This is really where the Rekluse auto clutch really shines. You can sit there, if you think of a new person, one of the toughest things they do is having to start off a bike from standing still. Typically what happens there, they got the clutch in, and then they go ahead and either dump the clutch and they fly off the back, or they keep the brakes on, the bike stalls. That's the common thing. With the Rekluse, you can sit there, have your foot on the brake, have the clutch in, shift into first, let out the clutch. The bike just sits there and won't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere until you give it the gas. Then that clutch will expand, locks up your clutch, and then away you go. Nice and smooth, gives you a little slip, really makes it nice there for the new rider that can't work a clutch. Maybe someone's not an expert with a clutch, this really takes the work out of it. You still should shift your bike normally. Again, it's not replacing the clutch, to not turn into an automatic transmission. You can shift without a clutch now if you know what you're doing. You can still do it with that, but you still need to work your clutch. But this here is going to make it a lot easier. It's going to allow you, maybe if you're coming into a corner hot and you lock up the brakes and you forget to hit the clutch, the bike won't stall. This will be a huge safety factor for you. You go into a technical area really fast. Sometimes you forget to downshift. You're in third gear instead of second. You come out, you hit the gas. Instead of just dying, the bike will take off and go nice and easy. So there's a huge bunch of benefits there, especially for the newer rider. This thing totally transforms your bike, totally takes the pressure off the clutch, really makes it a nice thing to have. Now, from an experienced rider standpoint, there's also a benefit, and I'll need to explain that as well. So again, myself, I'm almost got 50 years of working a motorcycle clutch, so I can make the clutch do whatever I want. I don't have a problem. I'm not an expert, but I don't have a problem working the clutch. And there's really, again, the Rekluse isn't anything magic. There's nothing the Rekluse can do that I can't do myself. So why would I want one? Well, there's a lot of benefit of it. And the benefit comes in to really understanding what that Rekluse actually does and where you can use that to your advantage in a particular situation. So let me give you a couple of ideas. One of the big benefits I'm getting out of the Rekluse right now is the starts. So with the Rekluse, I can do second gear starts off the line, off a dead stop, substantially faster than I can by myself. So this Raptor has a ton of torque. And if you pop in second gear, you give it the gas, let out the clutch. If you let out the clutch too fast, first thing that's going to happen, the front end's up on you. That completely negates any type of speed that you were going to do, because you have to hit the brake or let off the clutch. By that time, people have already passed you. With the Rekluse, when you're at idle, it's got basically no pressure, it's contracted, and so your clutch is slipping. And so when you start your bike, give it the gas, it's coming off idle, you roll on the throttle, there's just enough slippage for the bike to take off without that sudden grab that you get when you dump the clutch. Now again, you can still do it by hand and still let out the clutch a little slower. The Rekluse just does it for you. It does it automatically. And this is really where the benefit comes into. There's so many things going on at once, not having to think about the clutch, not having to Am I going to meter it out right? What's the soil looking like or what have you? Forget about it. Just worry about getting the bike started and getting to the first corner. You let the Rekluse do its job for you. Even though you could do it yourself, just let it do its job. You come out of the gate much faster. And so I've been really getting some good starts when my bike hits the first time. It's that second gear, I can just get on it and just full throttle and away I go. Another benefit I've been really having, is really in the mud. So if you went to the Ironman race this year, the GNCC Ironman, it was a complete mud fest, and it was a little bit different mud. So you're either in really thick, soupy mud, or in a lot of the woods area, it's like the top inch was mud, and then it was water on top, and it was just like grease. You were just sliding all over the place. And so the whole key to the race was momentum, as mud races are. But the nice thing about the Rekluse, like if you're going through some thick mud, you're going through some place where you got to get the momentum, maybe you're in second gear and you're just kind of holding the throttle there, keeping the wheel spinning to keep that momentum going. With the Rekluse, you do it differently. You upshift. Upshift into that next higher gear, bring your RPMs way down. When you bring your RPMs way down, that takes away from your power, which is what you want, because with low power, you don't, when you give it the gas or increase the throttle, it doesn't just slide the wheels on you all of a sudden. What it does, it just takes off slowly. So what you end up doing is your rear wheels end up staying hooked up all the time. And it's really kind of an odd feeling. You can go through this slippery stuff, like upshift into third gear, bring your RPMs down just off an idle. The Rekluse will sit there and slip, non-slip, depending on where your RPMs are at. But you can sit there and go through this stuff like it's drive pavement almost. It's really a different feeling. I can't tell you how much more speed you can carry by doing this one. You just leave it like in third gear instead of either first or second. Just go, and the bike stays hooked up. It's not sliding. It's really nice for the mud, I can tell you. The trick is to understand what it's doing for you. So when you come up to those muddy sections, understanding, okay, I'm going to upshift and just not worry about my clutch. Forget about the clutch, focus on the mud, focus on your lines, focus on getting over obstacles. Let the Rekluse do its job. And so you basically, it's like having a third hand for you that was really good with the clutch. And having a third hand on some circumstances when it's really tricky is really an advantage. And that's really what you're doing. If you're an experienced person, you got to find those opportunities where you can offload your clutch to the Rekluse and you focus on something else. That's the trick. Another good example that I have problems with is going up hills. When I'm going up a hill in second gear, third gear, or whatever, however fast the particular hill is, and in the middle of the hill or towards the top, it seems like there's always some type of a ledge, there's a root system, there's something on there where you go up and you hit that thing, and now you go from fast and you go down to slow, and then you got to try to take off to get up the hill again. And so usually it requires a downshift. Sometimes maybe you can hit it hard enough, wind it out in second, get over that stuff, and then have enough RPM to continue on in second and go. My problem is with this Raptor right here is the torque. When I go up there and I hit that hard spot, and when I go to get back on the throttle, this torque on this thing, the front end comes up, and you end up going this way, you end up going that way. 9 times out of 10, it just takes you right into the tree. It happens so many times. I've had so many close calls with that thing. You really, really got to watch out when you give it the throttle on that thing, because up the front wheel goes. With the Rekluse, again, I don't worry about it. I just say, I know it's going to do its job. So if I'm going up in third gear and I hit that spot, I can let off the gas or what have you. When I get through it, when I go to take off, I ain't got to worry about downshifting. I ain't got to worry about dumping the clutch or really getting on the throttle. And the RPMs are low. I give it the gas, the clutch will slip, and is slowly but surely hooks up, hooks up, hooks up. Over the hill you go a lot faster, and your front end stays on the ground. You maintain steering, over the hill you go. It's been a huge safety factor with me. Your bike may not have that problem. I have that problem with this one here. It's just the torque on this thing is ridiculous sometimes. Torque's a great thing. That's why I love this bike, but there's some circumstances there where it sucks. That second gear start is one where it doesn't do any good, and going up hills where you have a transition spot and have to get back on the gas, 3/4 of the way up the hill is not a spot where you want a lot of torque either. It's been causing me problems. So a lot of benefit with the Rekluse. Again, if you're a newer rider, it's night and day difference for you. But even if you're, again, experienced rider here, a lot of people think, well, what's it going to do? Well, again, there's nothing that this Rekluse can do that you can't do by yourself. The thing is, especially if you're racing, there are so many things going on. If you don't have to worry about something, you can offload something to something else for you to do automatically for you. It's a competitive advantage for you. You'll end up going faster. I've noticed just a general increase in speed on the mud races. It's night and day difference for me. But just even on dry races there, coming into corners, coming into nasty sections, jumping over logs. I hate logs, but when I come over, it's such a jolt sometimes. It's just, being out of shape and being older there, it's tough when you hit just the ground flat, and, the tendency to stall the bike, or having to do all that stuff while you're shifting. You ain't got to worry about that. When you come up to those situations, you can say, aha, here's a really terrible situation. I'm going to just not worry about my clutch. I'm going to let the Rekluse do it. I'm going to focus on these things instead. That just gets you through those things safer. It gets you through much faster. It's actually a really nice product there. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the install video. Hope you like that. It's on these Raptors. It's really easy to install if you have to do one. Unfortunately, with the Raptors, they don't have a clutch cover. They've got an engine side cover, so it's a little bit more bolts, a little bit more involved. If you got a YFZ or a dirt bike or something else that's got that clutch cover, you can put one of these in and out super easy. It's probably wouldn't take you 30 minutes there if you got a clutch cover on it there, but it's still, even though it's a little bit more involved on these Raptors, it's still an easy job. Anybody can do it there. So hope you enjoy the install video. And again, if you're looking for something there to give you a little bit more speed, a little bit more safety, if you're a new person and want to make your bike nicer, again, maybe you got kids or a spouse or something that doesn't know how to work a clutch, and you have a sport bike, the Rekluse is going to be a huge benefit for you. But if you're a racer and you're just looking for anything possible to give you a little bit more edge, the Rekluse will do that for you. Again, you just got to understand how it works and where it can benefit you. And when you see that opportunity, take advantage of it. You'll get more speed out of it. So that's with it. So enjoy the video. Hey folks, today we're going to be installing a Rekluse clutch kit on my 2018 Yamaha Raptor. Kind of looking forward to this. This is a lot more heavy duty clutch. It's going to hook up a lot better. It's also going to keep the bike from stalling when jumping over logs and those types of things here. So it's got everything in here you need. It's got an adjustment band, pack of springs, an auto clutch, the engagement springs here if you want to switch out how it engages. In the sack here, these are your drive plates. It's got, hard to see in here, but there's these, let me pull them out here. There's these little basket shims. You slide these on. These are stainless steel. They make your basket a lot stronger, make your clutch work a lot better. Here's all your friction discs in here. It's important here to pay attention. You've got one different one in here. So absolutely, before you start this thing here, take some time and read through the instructions. It's got some very specific things that you need to do. We got to get these soaking in oil. I need to do that right now. And then this thing right here is where the magic happened. This is the auto clutch. So what this thing here does, let me pull it out. Got to go in the oil here. This has got little weights in there, in their springs. Again, they give you some different springs to tell you how fast it engages, but what this thing does is when the RPM starts spinning up, it expands. And when it expands, that's just like letting out the clutch. And so this thing sets up here, it spins, and then as you give it a little bit of gas, it expands and engages your clutch, and away you go. So you don't even really have to use your clutch. You still can use your clutch, but this here basically eliminates that, keeps your bike from stalling. Really nice piece. Also got a full set of clutch discs. In here again, I think there's two different kinds. There's two thick ones, I believe, and then the rest are thinner ones. From memory there, I'll have to go back and read through that. But again, different size friction plates here, so be sure of that. But that's it. Complete clutch kit. We do need a gasket. Got an OEM gasket here that I bought as well. So we should all be set. And let's go ahead and get started installing this. Okay, folks, before we get started on removing the clutch and moving the clutch cover, obviously drain the oil out of there. You got to drain your coolant out, which is already done. We got to pull our oil filter out, unhook our cables and stuff. I'll show you some of that. What we want to do here first is look at some of these bolts that we got. I believe they're all the same size on this model, but there's you see it there? Right there is a oil bolt we got to take off. Here, these two bolts here, you can hardly see they hold the clutch cable. So you just kind of want to go around and see, film something, take some pictures. Here's holding the brake light switch cover. Down there, you see that one there is holding, I think it's got a cable router on there. So you want to make sure you get all these back in the same spot. This one down there, you can't really see it too much. You can see that there's a little tab on there that this hose goes through. And that's about it. So there's a little one here on the front. No, nothing on there. So that's it. We just want to do a good look, a little video reference there. So when we put this thing back together, we know what we're doing. So a couple of things here to start with before we get started. Probably one of the first things we're going to do, looks like we're going to have to unbolt our foot peg. I'm not so happy about that. It's either that or bend this out of the way. I don't know if that's going to bend back. So I'm probably just going to try to loosen this. I've unfortunately got Nerf bars. That's going to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and get started pulling these ones off and get my oil filter housing off. Then we'll regroup and start pulling off some of the other stuff. So first let me zoom up here. I got my bike jacked up. I got it some old brims under both these tires here, just to give it a little bit of angle. This makes it a little bit easier for me. Supposedly I'm not going to try this, don't recommend it, but if you tilt your bike up far enough, you don't actually have to change the oil, but that just seems like a big mess and needlessly. So I just got this thing up on an angle a little bit here just to make it easier for me to see. I've went ahead here and taken off my two bolts that hold off my foot peg and my brake lever. So now I got that little bracket out of the way. I went ahead and undid my clutch cable here. A couple things. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see this or not. But if you look right there at the edge of my thumb, there's a little white nick that's supposed to line up with this one or pretty close to it. So what I did here, you can't even see it. I wonder if I just wiped it off with my thumb. Probably did. But I put a mark on this side here. I'm going to have to do it again, lining that up there so I just know where it is when I go to put this cover back on. So when we slide this thing back on, this thing here, rod goes down and it's got a geared tooth on there that brings out a little clutch boss just like this, and that makes your press against your pressure plate to make your clutch work. So when we get this thing back on there, we want to make sure it's in the gear, and then we want to make sure that when we push it and it stops, it comes back where they're in alignment right there. And so that'll be a little bit of back and forth. Also, again, I pulled my lower radiator hose, a little bit of water come out. I just got some soaking up. I've loosened up my clamp on here. When I pull my cover off, that hose will come off. And so I'm ready to go. I've kind of mapped out where all the little tabs go. Again, oil's drained, water's drained, and I got everything ready. So I'm going to start pulling off all those bolts and pull it off here, and we'll see what it looks like. So I've got all the bolts off. There's, 12 or 13 of the darn things. On this bike here, they're all the same size, so you don't have to worry about them. However, what I did do is I still put them in order. I started here on the front and went this way. That way I could kind of get all those little cables, tabs, and all that kind of stuff to go. All right, folks, one update here. I forgot to film this, but I'll put it in now. So when you take out all your bolts here, there's one water pump bolt. It's right here. You can see where the alignment is right there. It's a big long bolt. This is actually one that holds the cover on too. As I was kind of spotting this thing around here, I noticed that this one looked like it was holding on there. I removed it and I got the cover off there. So when you take all the small ones, you got a whole bunch of small ones and one big water pump bolt. There's always a possibility here you might want to remove your water pump. I didn't want to do that, so I had to pull this bolt out instead, and I left my water pump in. So it's a good thing when you're taking these bolts off don't just pull one off and then pull another one off. You want to do a kind of like a star pattern. Just break them loose a little bit, get them all broken loose, then take it off. Because what happens is with these aluminum covers there, you know, if you take them all off one side and you get down to here, you just got one or two things that are trying to smash that cover on, you could actually bend it a little bit. So anytime you're doing with aluminum there, don't just pull the bolts off, just try to break them loose a little bit at a time. Once you get them all broke loose, then go ahead and take them all out and you're good to go. When we pull this off, hopefully it comes off easy for me, but this little lever here is probably going to twist. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on it there when it does, and we'll see there about where it lines up there, because we'll put it back on there. And when we put it back on, we want to get it here to where we push this clutch in, it gets back right in alignment where we are. And so we might have to pull the cover on and off a couple times, but we'll get to that when we're there. So again, I'm all ready to go. Got my radiator hoses off, everything loose, all the bolts off. So now I'm going to sit here with this dead blow hammer and see if I can't just pull this thing off just a little bit here. Do some tapping on it. All right, well, it's not coming right off. I'm going to keep after it here, and just, again, you don't want to pry on anything here. If you pry, you'll tear up your gasket surface. So just, we're just going to go around here and just tap quite a bit until we get the thing broken loose from the seal, and then we'll be good to go. All right, folks, I got my clutch cover off. Everything looks good. Don't see any parts laying on the bottom, which is good. I got one disaster going. This paper gasket is stuck on both sides and is not coming off very easy. So this is going to take some time to get off. This here's my side cover there. Kind of got it backwards. This is the clutch. So you can see the clutch in here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's a little gear on there. That's going to connect to this little thing right here. This is what pushes your clutch in. So we'll make sure we line that. This is your water pump here. I chose not to take that off. When we put this on, we just got to make sure we don't force it because it'll break these plastic teeth. If it's not going on, you might have to jiggle a little bit to get these on a line to push in there. But what I'm going to do right now, first off, is start getting all this gasket off both sides. And after that, we'll go ahead and pull out these clutch springs. So let me go ahead and do this. You can see this is probably going to be a solid hour's job. What a mess. Anywho, hope you don't have this luck. Okay. Well, I got that gasket off. That was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. Holy cow, does that thing take forever? And scrape, scrape, scrape. So, all right, well, we are ready here to take our clutch off. We've got 5 bolts there. They are 10 millimeter. Use my little wrench. I'm just going to do them a little bit at a time here. Kind of take them off a little star pattern. Okay. Got all those off. We can pull off here our hub real quick. Just do a quick look at it. Everything looks really good. Let's wipe this off. You want to make sure there's no grooves in this plate here. It's all nice and flat. This one's looking really good. Stick it somewhere here safe. Now we can pull our clutch pack out. You just kind of find a spot here. I got the feeling this might be pretty good looking. You just kind of pull one of these clutch plates out. that. Well, you can see this clutch here. Man, this thing is actually in good shape. You can see the disarm thing. I've got two years of racing on this thing, and man, this clutch looks good. And I'll tell you, racing in the woods, you are on the clutch all the time. I'm just surprised. I wasn't having any clutch issues, but shocked here that this thing is in good shape as it is. This is in really good shape. All right, so I got my, the one thing about these, yeah, this one isn't as good a shape. So these got here, you can see this little tiny one here. So they've got 7 plates, and then they got this half plate here, about half the diameter. This is really for making the clutch a lot more forgiving. It doesn't grab as bad. I think for newer riders there, it just makes the clutch experience a lot better. But this is obviously the wink link. So if something's going to start slipping and burning out, it's going to be this one. If I'm looking at that one, this one's getting pretty goddamn wore off, actually. So those clutch places look good. This half one right here, as you can imagine, is not. So probably a good deal that I done it before I done it or wore it out any farther. So I got to get in here now. Let's know if I can reach in here to get a magnet, maybe. So you've got this little washer, this little conical washer. You can see that. It's concave like this. And then in here somewhere, a little spring or a little wire. Try pulling out. I'm not seeing the wire. See if I can reach down there and get that little spring out of there. Okay, here's this other one. Kind of get back in there, clean everything off, make sure it all looks good. I'm not seeing any grooving, which is good. All my hubs here look good. Feel here. You want to rub your fingers on here to see if there's any grooving. A lot of times you get groove, that'll make your clutch really hard to pull in. These are all really good. It's going to clean everything up here, and we'll be in good shape. Yep. All right. Let me get my box of stuff. All right. So now we're going to install these basket sleeves. They just slide in here. Let me see if it shows them any specific way how they go. Okay, they've got a little, you can see his little tab here. These go on the inside. Slide in like so. Push them all the way down. It's one. All right, I got all those in. Everything's in there flush, so everything's looking good. Now it's time to put in the clutch pack. All right, so the very first one here is to get this mess going. Very first one here is your actual auto clutch. We'll slide this in, get this going. Make sure none of these teeth are. Alright, that's difficult. Alright, there we go. One in. All the way set in. Alrighty. The auto clutch, I think we've got, is it 2 thick ones? Yeah, we've got 2 thick plates here. So there's different size plates. These first couple here are like twice the size of the other one close to it. Double check, yep, these are the thick ones. Stick this plate in. There's no marking one way or the other. See anything? There in. Yeah, so it's all the same clutch disc. We go 2 thick plates, all the normal clutch discs, and the very last clutch fiber is a big thick one. So hopefully, yeah, I've got them laid out that way. Alright, so we'll get this one here in. Oh, these little plates here, it's going to take some time to things to get set. Okay, another thick disc. All right, you can see this one here. This one's got a silver lining on the outside. This is the thicker one. There's only one. It goes on the very outside, up against your pressure plate. Get my hand off here. Whew. All righty, we are ready. Stick our springs on here. Okay, I got them all in. I'm gonna run them down, not tight. I'm just gonna run them in a little bit at a time, just to make it easier. Okay, we got that.
Now, let's see what the torque is on these, if there's anything special that they've said. All right, so I'm gonna look this up in the manual and get out my torque wrench. I have 5.8 foot-pounds. Oh, let me get my torque wrench going here. Okay. Check one more time. Okay. That is good. That is on there. I'm just gonna wipe this down a little bit. Get all my oil out. Now when you put your clutch cover back on, you want to get the surfaces as dry as possible, especially using a paper gasket there. You don't want to get it soaked before it goes on there. You've got this little pull rod right here. It's got teeth on it, you can see. The teeth need to be facing backwards when we stick it on. So we're going to stick it on there just like that, so it engages. We get our gasket out here. A little bit of contact cleaner on there. Just dry it off really good. Make sure it's good and dry. Okay, looks good. Okay, I'm going to stick our two dowel pins. The dowel pin on this one here goes in that one. The dowel pin back here. Make sure those are in good. In and seated. Go ahead and ease our gasket on. There we go. Make sure it's all stuck. Sitting on there nice and good. Things looking good. All right. Okay. Now, let's see if we can get lucky. Get this clutch cover back on. All right. All right. I've got my little thing back there. I'm going to twist my knob till it's about level like that. Okay, so you can see there, I got the clutch. It's way past, so I have to pull this back out a little bit again. Alrighty, well, that's pretty darn good right there. Okay, so time to put the bolts back in. I'm gonna do my order. There's some of these ones that are a little bit, I didn't need all that on there for sure. A little rusty. I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads just to keep them getting any more rustier. And then on the end of the thread, I'm gonna stick a little bit of Loctite. A little bit of blue Loctite here. I like to put it on just about everything I do. It's not too bad. Let's do kind of a crisscross pattern here. We'll just snug them. Yeah, let's see what these clutch cover bolts are supposed to be like. 7.2 foot-pounds or 10 Newton meters. I think I can do better with 10 on this thing. Okay, everything's looking good. Okay, we got our banjo bolt. Goes under our little oil line there. Be a little bit tricky. Clean them off really good. See if we can get this under there. Had it falling out like it just did. Tighten this one at the top before I forget about it. Loosened it up. I didn't think, you don't need to. Okay. Go ahead and get my hose on here good. My hose clamp. My other hose on. Go. Now my clutch here, I started to put my clutch cable on, and if you remember there, I was on and off with my clutch, and I was kind of either one way this way or a little bit that way. So as I was putting my clutch cable on, it felt like I was having to lengthen the cable a little bit too far. So what I want to do here is just pull off this arm. It's got like fine little teeth on it that you can turn it a little bit, a little bit at a time. There's a snap ring up here on the top. Unfortunately, that necessitated a run to Harbor Freight. But once you take the snap ring off, you just slide it around, twist it here to where you want. I want one more. I want to get it right back to where I had it before. I got to get one more click on there. I put a little bit of anti-seize on there. So that right there is about right where I had it before. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. Finish putting my clutch cover on. Put my foot peg back on, bolt everything up, get water in it, get oil in it, and then we'll start it up and adjust the gap. So we're gonna go ahead and start this up. We've got this rubber band on here. We gotta let it warm up. Then we're gonna check what the free play is. So we're basically adjusting the clutch to where it's slipping. And then when you rev it up, the little auto clutch expands and does your clutch. So the free play gain, once it gets warmed up, we want to rev this thing up, and we should see this thing go back about 1/8 to 1/4 inch by itself. When we do that, we got the free play adjusted on it. I guess it's called the gap. So we're going to go ahead and start it up, warm it up, and then we'll adjust it and get it to where it goes. So let's see what it does here. See that there move when I rev it up? That's the free play gain. So we need to adjust this out a little bit farther. Alright folks, so I'm out here testing. What the braking procedures want you to do is to stick your, come to a stop, get your bike in first gear, let out the clutch like this. You can see no clutch, I'm in first gear. Then simply, roll on, just take off like that and come to a stop. And you do that about 10 times. The next thing you want to do is shift it into second. Now I'm in second. Let out the clutch in second gear and do a second gear start just from rolling off. So that's the braking procedure there. You do the first one about 10 times, do the second one about 10 times, then check your free play and make sure everything's ordered, and then from there you should be good to go. So we're going to go out here and do a little bit of testing of the day and get it broken in, make sure there's no issues or no leaks, and we should be in good shape. one thing about these Recluses is, you know, going downhill, you know, since you got a clutch, does it engage? Well, it does. So watch this. I get going down here. You can see here, I still got engine braking, just the same as you always do. Got to watch out for bikes and freaking mud everywhere. But yeah, you still got just as much engine braking as you always do.